What up, High and Y fam? I'm Delco Dave, and I'm joined once again for season 2 of Behind the Stripes, the great legendary Dave Jackson, current NHL rules analyst for ESPN. Dave, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. You got to stop with the great and legendary. Those apply to you, I think, in your hometown there, running the sandwich shop. People starve without you, man.
I do call myself the cheesesteak king of Lincoln, but nobody
There
else
you
uses
go.
that name.
There you go. That's much better. That's much more deserving.
I appreciate it, man. No, but I'm happy we're back for season 2. We took us a few weeks to get it set up, but episode 1's ready to go. We got a good call. But how was your off season, and how's the start of the hockey year been for you?
Well, the off season was busy. Playoffs took us into with ESPN third round, so early June, and then a bit of traveling. Went to Europe for the first time. I don't know why it took me so long to get there. Hockey's taken me to Russia, has taken me to Great Britain, but I've never been to mainland Europe. So it was a really great time. Can't wait to go back. And then we had the three ice, which was going ongoing when I got back, and I run the officials with that. So traveled to some really cool cities. Had a great final in Philadelphia. Actually, was the three ice, the Patty Cup, and that was well attended and some great hockey. So, and then before you know it, back to the NHL season. So it's been kind of nonstop.
Yeah, man. October snuck up on us, man, and it's
Sure did.
that's cool that your job took you to all those cool spots. My job took me to Afghanistan, Kuwait, and Guantanamo Bay. So those are the sites I got to see.
Really good for you.
Yeah, yeah, they were awesome.
Yeah, you bring some sandwiches over with you.
No, I wasn't making sandwiches then. I was just a soldier at that point. So that's all.
Yeah.
I wish I was selling sandwiches then. But let's just dive into it here. We are discussing a disallowed. Well, I guess technically it was a goal that was overturned and ruled disallowed. Is what it is.
Well, technically, it was no goal.
It was ruled no goal on the ice.
Correct. It was also
Okay.
ruled no goal after video review.
Okay. So, but what was the initial call? I thought the initial call was goal, and they overturned it via video review.
No, I believe the call on the ice was no goal,
No goal, and
and
they
then
upheld the
and then
call.
they went and then they went and had the situation room, look at it and make a final determination on it.
Okay, gotcha. So before I bring you in and let you give your piece on it, I'm just going to read the rule that I think is the crux of this call. It's Rule 31.2, and it's in regard to the officials blowing the whistle. So, as there is a human factor involved in blowing the whistle to stop play, the referee may deem the play to be stopped slightly prior to the whistle actually being blown. The fact that the puck may come loose or cross the goal line prior to the sound of the whistle has no bearing if the referee has ruled that play had been stopped prior to this happening. So that was the highlight of the rule I wanted to bring up. And we were talking off camera before we started. And you brought up a good point about a referee's official possibly even being broken. And would that affect the outcome of the play? So, you know the play I'm calling about before we run the
Yeah.
clips. That's the rule. So go ahead, Dave.
Well, you think about that, and people seem to get bent out of shape about the intent to blow the whistle. So let's picture a goalie placing his hand fully over a puck on the ice, and the referee going, "Well, that's frozen," and bringing his whistle to his mouth, and then it gets knocked loose before he can actually blow the whistle. Should that negate the fact that the puck was frozen just because he couldn't get his arm up fast enough? And then let's take it to an extreme. Let's say that same referee is in the corner and he gets bumped. We see referees get hit all the time. What if that referee gets bumped and a stick hits his whistle? They're using the rubber whistles now, but back when it was the metal whistle and it was soldered onto the finger hold. So what if it happened to every referee I know once a season, a stick would hit your whistle and the whistle would break. And sometimes you weren't aware of it. So what if goalie makes a glove save and you skate to the net and you see it's frozen? You go to blow your whistle and it's not there. There's no whistle on your hand. Does that mean the play just keeps continuing and they score a goal when it should have been frozen? Like, of course not. In the referee's head, in his mind, that puck is frozen, and whether he actually gets the whistle to his mouth and blows it in time, really has no bearing. And that's just common sense when you break it down how I just explained those situations that could happen.
Exactly. So the overall, the referee makes the decision. As soon as he makes that call, it doesn't matter what the whistle blows or what happens after that. He made the decision, plays over at that moment. It doesn't matter what happens after that.
Think about a bang bang delayed offside where the player takes a slap shot as the puck comes to him and he scores on a slap shot and the linesman can't get the whistle to his mouth fast enough. Does that mean we allow the goal because the linesman didn't blow the whistle quick enough? Of course not. The goal is disallowed because it was offside. Just because the whistle didn't happen before the goal was scored, it really has no bearing.
And this is why we have video review, for reasons like this. Like this it's supposed to, the point is to get it right. Doesn't matter. The
Correct.
point is to
Although
get the call right.
video review doesn't really take into account the blowing of the whistle because it's tough sometimes to sync up the audio and the actual video. So there's times where it's off by a second, so it's not really fair knowing whether it was bang on and was synchronized. So when it comes to the blowing of the whistle, that's just up to the referee's integrity and judgment and what he sees. And he'll just when they're doing those reviews, that's part of the reason. Even though Toronto has the ultimate authority, they're the final decision maker on a call. People say, why do they have the referees on the call? Because things like that, they'll consult with the referee and go, okay, when did you blow the whistle? And he'll say, well, I deemed it frozen even before I blew the whistle. I deemed it frozen at such and such a place. And they'll be rolling the video. He'll be watching. He'll be right there. That's when I deemed it frozen. So the whistle doesn't really have a bearing on that.
So you actually answered what was in my follow-up question. I was going to ask, does Toronto ask the referee when they were going to blow the whistle?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So
in certain cases, they will.
So that makes sense. So we'll go ahead. Let's roll the clip, and then we'll discuss it further. So we got 4 clips. I'm just going to run them back to back to back, and then we'll get back on the analysis.
Right on.
We'll just fire it right there. Where is it?
Cooley's looking.
His pad.
He's pointing to. It's in, Joe. We see it on the video board. The fans reacted. Longer review than I expected.
See, he
Pull here. Okay, here's Kevin Pollock.
The video review, the initial shot was not in. The play was frozen. We have no goal.
So I think the key part there was that he said the initial shot was not in. So
Correct.
They fire that shot. The goalie pins it against his pad in the post, it looks like, from the live streams. And then the puck eventually goes in. But somewhere in between when that first shot was fired and when the puck falls in, the official had to deem the play over.
Correct. So the original, the shooter of the puck, he obviously felt it was in. Now, he had probably the best angle. I'm not saying he was right, but in his mind it was in. He had the best angle, and people were asking me on Twitter about the official himself, like why was he out of position? Well, he wasn't out of position. He just happened to be bad luck. He was on the other side of the net. And if you watch the play develop, he's 5-10 feet out from the boards in the corner. He's standing where he should be. There's no scramble happening at the net at this point. They were cycling the puck. He's got everything in front of him. He's got a great view of all 10 players, actually, with his primary focus being on the goaltender and the guys right around him. So that shot happens on the net, and it doesn't rebound. It doesn't go directly in the back of the net, and he pounces on the net. But he has probably 10 strides to make before he gets there. And he gets there, and he gets himself into good position behind the net. And from the time the shooter deemed the puck to be in to when Kevin Pollock got there, nothing had changed. It was either in or wasn't in, but the puck hadn't moved really. The puck was where it was. He got to the net, blew the whistle. A second Ranger player came in 2 seconds later, banged at it. By then, he had deemed the puck was frozen. So whether his whistle went or not before that second attempt at hitting the puck went in, that certainly dislodged the puck. But I mean, that in Kevin's mind, That puck was frozen long before that. So what it comes down to right now is, was the original shot across the line? And from where he's standing, it did not appear to be. So they go to Toronto, and now it's in Toronto's hands. Toronto has such great technology. They have overhead. They can isolate the the puck with without, the when the video gets kind of blurry, without distortion. They can isolate pucks and see exactly where they are. And they took, I mean, this video took a while for this review, and I believe it. They looked at it from every angle they could, and they just determined the puck did not cross the goal line.
So you're talking about the angles on the video that they have. They have different video feeds than what's just a live broadcast, correct?
They primarily go off the live broadcast feeds. However, they have the in-net cam as well, and which they allow the broadcast to use. And I'm not really sure whose camera that is, but pretty much the same angles you're going to get from TV broadcast, but they're able to enhance them and blow them up and zoom in with very little distortion. So they can get a pretty good look at it. Now, the only thing probably tough there is the best angle would probably be from the side, and that's where you have the sort of the cowling on the side of the net down low, which distorts your view a little bit.
Well, it's like you said. You said the shooter probably had the best angle, so that first angle is probably the best look we had at it.
Correct. Now you have to realize, though, when they go to video review, there has to be irrefutable, indisputable evidence to prove that the puck is fully across the goal line, and that evidence didn't exist. Now, if by some miracle Kevin had been standing right behind the net when that shot occurs, and he could have seen the puck actually come in, and he deemed it to have crossed, then the goal probably would have stood, because I don't think they would have had irrefutable evidence to say it wasn't totally, that it didn't totally cross the line. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to go with the call on the ice because things become inconclusive. And I haven't spoken to anyone, so I don't know the actual determination as to whether there was irrefutable proof it didn't cross the line or it was just inconclusive. But either way, nobody saw the puck fully across the line.
It's the old baseball adage, tie goes to the runner. So whatever they call on the ice, unless they can fully reverse it, they're not going to switch it.
Absolutely.
Or else then you have a whole different headache of people complaining about it.
Correct.
Exactly.
I mean, you can't, and even, I mean, there's times where the puck's underneath the goaltender's glove, for example, and he gets, his glove will go fully across the goal line, but you can't see the puck. And, people say 2 + 2 = 4, but unfortunately, when it comes to video review, you need to show your work. and if you can't show your work, it doesn't matter what you are assuming or what you're saying. We all know where the puck is. If you can't see it, there's no way you can say, I'm overturning it on video. There needs to be evidence.
I love your math example there, having to show your work.
Yeah.
That was good. That takes me back to middle school. So a little caveat to this that I really liked when I was looking at these clips, at Scouting the Refs on X, great account. If anybody wants to follow them, they do a great job. They're very straightforward about everything. They don't try to, play one side or the other. Dave, I think didn't you do an episode with them at one point before?
I did. Yeah. They're a great bunch of guys. They have a great podcast.
Yeah. So great guys. So somebody made a they made a post about this particular call. Somebody made a comment, and I'm not going to post a comment, but their response I thought was intriguing. So I'll put that up here and read it for the people. Looks like a coincidence, but when a name pops up repeatedly on the same types of situations, it does make you stop and take notice. Does this guy have a particular tendency? Does he call a tighter game or tougher on certain types of penalties? And the initial comment was about, hey, this guy keeps popping up in a lot of your posts. What do you think that's about? Is essentially what that first comment was. So, Dave, the reason I thought it was interesting is because people go in, they discuss players, tendencies, strengths, weaknesses, road splits, home splits. But what about officials? Do officials have their own tendencies, their own biases, their own leans? And
well,
I'm sure all human beings do. And is there any techniques or tools that officials do to try to block that stuff out?
Well, I think the website you talk about, Scouting the Refs, they have detailed stats on every referee in the league, and they'll break down how many penalties each referee calls per game throughout the season. They'll break down how many are on the home team, how many are on the visiting team. They'll break down how many goals are scored in the games they referee, and it's really remarkable. People have this in their head that certain referees are tougher on the home team or certain referees are tougher on the visiting team. When you read these stats of all 35 referees, it's really remarkable that, let's just say, for example, um, the biggest, let's say, fans like to call him homer referee, the biggest number might be something like a 50.6 power plays go to the home team, and the guy that gives it to the home team the most, yeah, he might have like 49.2% penalties go to the home team. And it's really remarkable how close the top and bottom range are when it comes to penalties per game, penalties on the home team, penalties on the visiting team. And it really brings into light how fair I think these guys are. Like, they don't, there's too many there's too many ways within the league for people to recognize if there was a trend, if there was an outlier that was doing something that was sort of really abnormal compared to what the rest of the staff is doing. You've got supervisors that, like, 40% of these guys' games. Toronto Situation Room watches every single game played. Director of officiating Steve Walkham must watch 15 games a week and see how his guys are working. There's just too many guardrails for a referee to just be way off on his own doing what he wants and going against what should be done. It just seems, though, that when people watch hockey games, and it's funny, I'll talk to them and they'll watch two games that don't impact their own team, and they have no issues with the refereeing. And then when it's their team, they just lose their mind. They just think this guy's out to get our team. And you look at the box score, and the penalties were like 4-5. Yet in the game they had no problem with, like, the box score was like 8-2 in penalties, and they didn't say anything wrong with it because the teams deserved the penalties, right? And it's just funny to watch how people lose their neutrality and they become biased. And I don't even think they mean to sometimes, but they just seem to think that when a call goes against them, that the referees have to get them. And I watch, I work a bunch of games every week, and then I watch a bunch of games for pleasure.
You're the hardest
And
working man in hockey, as far as I know.
well, it's not that the work's not that hard. It's fun though. But I will just watch a game, and I'll see the referees miss a penalty, miss a blatant trip or something on the home team. And you know what's amazing? Nobody yells. If the crowd really cared about, quality of officiating, you would think they would be roaring and yelling like that penalty should have been called, but they don't. And then after the game, they harp on the one call they think maybe their team should have got or that shouldn't have got, but they don't bring into account the breaks or whatever they got throughout the game that went against the other team.
I'll be honest, Dave.
Tough game, the referee.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Dave. Since me and you started working together and doing this show together, and it's been a couple years now. You were on my show a couple times before we started this one, and we talk and text and stuff. I'll be honest, it's changed the way I watch all sporting events, because I was definitely that fan all the time, screaming about the referees, as long as it was favoring my team. And now I'll have people over to watch games and stuff, and people are getting mad about calls. I'm like, I'll be like, we got away with 3 of them earlier today. Like, we might want to let that one go.
Yeah, it's just these guys are out there doing their very best. And the last thing, I mean, I know I kind of coined it when I was working. Kelly Sutherland is still a good friend of mine. We worked a lot of playoff series together, and we would leave that game relatively unscathed, and we'd go, you know what? Tonight our fingerprints, we didn't leave fingerprints anywhere over this game tonight. And that was the greatest feeling. You didn't want to go in there and have everybody leave talking about the refereeing. And these people that consistently come at me saying the referees are making it all about themselves, it's the last thing they want to do. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes you got to make it about yourself because that's what you're paid to do. You're paid to go in there and referee a hockey game. And if one team doesn't want to play by the rules, then you have to step up and take charge, in which case everybody notices you. And that's what you get paid for.
And I know you said before that people will come after you and saying you're always defending the officials and the referees. And you're a former official. You've been in there with them, and I don't necessarily think that you're just always like defending them. Like, you acknowledge that calls get missed. We've discussed missed calls. People miss calls. That happens.
Yep. And for people to think that referees intentionally missed a call because they wanted such and such a team to win or something, that's coming from someone that's never refereed a game at any level in any sport. Because all you want to do is be good. You want to have a perfect game. You know what? It's much like golf. You want to be perfect, and you're never going to be perfect. But when I go out, if I'm playing a great round of golf, I'm still mad when I miss a putt, even if I'm playing well. Or if I don't hit a shot or I miss a green, I'm still mad because I want to be perfect. And that's what the referees want to be. And they're never perfect. I was never perfect. I missed at least one call every game I probably ever worked. And you have no idea. I mean, people don't realize if a referee calls 7 penalties in a game, he hasn't just had 7 decisions to make. He's had 1,000 decisions. Every time players come in contact, every time there's a body check, every time anybody goes down or gets pushed or shoved or hit with an elbow or a stick touches somebody, there's a decision to be made. And these guys get it right. When you look at 1,000 decisions in a game, they're cranking along there at 98, 99%. So it's really hard to referee a sport at that speed with so much at stake, and they get it right an incredible amount of times. But you're right, we do make mistakes. The guys that are still there working now make mistakes, and over the weekend there was a couple of calls that I didn't think were penalties, and I answered honestly. People would say, well, is this a penalty? That this shouldn't be a penalty. And I answered, I said, no, I don't think that's a penalty. But then I try and explain. I think people mistake me when I'm trying to explain why the call was missed. They take it for being an apologist, which I'm not being an apologist. I'm simply trying to explain that it's not intentional. This is why it was missed, or possibly why it was missed. And so much comes down to sight lines as well.
Yeah, and that's our goal here. Our goal here on this show is to try to give a detailed explanation so every fan can understand that not just why the call was made or the decision was made, but also what the thought process, what the why behind it, the reasoning behind what they do. And you mentioned about all the calls that are made, the refs bet 98% on every decision they made, 1,000 decisions. And a lot of officials are having a hard time coming up. And I know this is something you're passionate about, Dave. The dearth of officials, the lack of officials we have coming up due to the environments that they're dealing with via coaches, via fans. So talk a little bit more about treatment of officials, young officials particularly, coming up through the training program.
Well, you said it. They're walking away in droves, like in hockey specifically, Canada and the US. They are, I mean, I believe they have a net loss every year of new officials versus ones that left the ranks. And the primary reason they cite is just abuse from players, coaches, and parents. And it's twofold. I think we need better, I shouldn't say better, we need more mentoring and coaching, because most of these kids are between the age of 14 and 18, 14 and 20. And they're learning as well. I mean, it's a craft. You're learning a trade, and you'd never sign your kid up for hockey. You'd never ask who's coaching Johnny this year and then go, well, we're not going to have coaches. We're just going to let them figure it out themselves. It wouldn't happen. Parents would lose their mind. But unfortunately, that's what happens a lot of times with referees. There's some very good programs all across the US and Canada where they have the money, they devote the money to training of officials, where they have supervisors, they have mentors. A lot of programs I've talked to, they have actually the shadow program where veteran referees will go out on the ice in a tracksuit and they'll shadow the young official around the ice. and it helps them. It deflects abuse from the coaches. If a egregious call is missed, they'll make the call. But there's a lot of other situations where referees are given their patch, they're given a rule book, they're given a weekend clinic, and then said, go referee. And you can't expect somebody to excel if they're not being constantly coached, constantly positive reinforcement. You know, when you've got parents yelling at you, coaches yelling at you, and players telling you that you're no good, and you come off that ice and there's nobody there, support system, you're going to start believing you're no good, and you're going to quit.
I think the
Whereas
support system, what you said, is huge. Like
Correct.
in anything, if you mentioned players specifically, if you're a player and you're out there and you make a mistake, you come back to the bench. The coach might be like upset with you for making a mistake. They're also going to tell you like what happened, what did they wrong, how you can correct it immediately, like during that game. Like
why you made that mistake and how to avoid committing the same mistake in the future.
Correct, and that happens in every professional job out there. Any job you have somebody there that like when you mess up. Now, some supervisors are better than others, so it's a case by case basis.
Sure.
But for the most part, somebody should be there. Hey, this is where you messed up. This is how you can correct it, so you don't do it again. And it like you said, if you're a 14-year-old kid, a child, and you're getting from adults in the stands, adults behind the bench are giving you a hard time, and then you're expected to just walk off that ice on your own and be like, all right, I'll figure this stuff out later. Like people wouldn't ask 26-year-olds to do that at a job, let alone expect a 14-year-old kid to do it.
And people wouldn't do that to a 16-year-old kid working at McDonald's, or most people wouldn't. But they seem to feel it's okay to do it if they're hockey referees. There's a great program in Canada. Maybe it's in the U.S. now too, but a lot of regions in Canada are using the green armband to where if the referee is under the age of 18, they wear a green armband, much like an orange armband for a referee. And the green armband signifies that they're a minor. So it's just one more sort of reminder to parents that you're yelling at a child.
A little check and balance right there. Like, yo, like, hey, like,
balance.
listen, like.
Exactly. And you know what? I was fortunate enough, we're going to do a whole segment on this, maybe next week, maybe a week after, on abuse. And I have some great stories that'll make you laugh.
Yeah, no, I think we can definitely. I was gonna plug it at the end of the episode. I was gonna say, I think next week's episode we'll do all on referee culture, dealing with the unsportsmanlike conduct, the fan abuse or fan involvement. I feel like we could probably do an entire episode on that. I think we should do it next week.
We definitely could. But just to finish my point about mentoring, when I started doing high level hockey, when I went from just doing rec league and kids house league hockey, I went to travel hockey. I was fortunate enough that I had a mentor named Doug Hayward. He's responsible for getting myself and probably 8 other Quebecers into the NHL. It was his mentorship and his guidance. But when I started, I worked my first season under him. I worked probably 100 games. That sounds like a lot of hockey, but the games were an hour and a half long, and you do back-to-back games. So you knock off 2 games. So, I worked like 50 nights or whatever. But in those 100 games over 2 seasons, so 200 games over 2 seasons, I still have in one of my filing cabinets, you get a debrief after the game, and it'd be written. And so you remind yourself the mistakes you made, the good things you did. And in those 200 games, I probably have close to 100 supervisions from this man. Essentially, it was at 50% of my games to make me better. And that's how you improve refereeing. You mentor.
It's how you improve anything. Any job, it's how you improve it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what's needed.
No, that's awesome. And is he around? Can we get him on for next week?
He's kind of shy. I doubt he'd be on here.
All right.
But he'll be watching our podcast. I'll tell you that.
All right, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're winding down now, hitting close to the 30-minute mark. Before we go, I promised my nephew to give him a shout out. So before I wrap this up, my nephew Braden Martin, number 11 over here for his team, currently he's 3 games into his middle school season, has 7 goals and 2 assists right now. Off to a great start. So Braden, go get him, man. I wanted to make sure I gave you the shout out before we closed out. Dave, I always like to put you up on the soapbox at the end, but I feel like you've hit your passionate point for the day.
Yeah,
so
maybe we should. I want to ask you how you enjoyed the NCAA hockey game.
Oh, it was my first college hockey I've ever been to, and UNO is a great program.
It
My
sure is.
my family was in town for it too. I see my family like twice, maybe 3 times a year now, and they came in for Veterans Day and we set it all up. Dude, it was awesome. Thank you so much for making that happen. It was a great experience. Everybody loved it. I still have not figured out why they throw fish on the ice all the time, but I will get to the bottom of it.
You get to the bottom of that, because that was my first time to the rink in Omaha as well, and what a beautiful facility, first class operation, and I was there as a mentor, as a a referee supervisor, and but that was my first time there, and I can't tell you how impressed I was with their program and just the way that people are committed to that program and make us feel welcome, and it was just great.
That's awesome. And I remember when we chatted that night, you mentioned that it was your way of giving back, which is great that you're trying to give back and, help the young officials and, other officials come up. And I will say, you will probably find that about just about everywhere in Nebraska. Like, there are a lot of first-class people I've been out here for almost 6 years now, and truly some first-class people. So
Yeah.
I hope you're back in town again, Dave, so we can link up again and hang out.
I'll have to come down and get some sandwiches in Lincoln.
Yeah, I'll get you a cheesesteak, man. I'll take you to the shop.
Right on.
For the great legendary Dave Jackson, former NHL official, veteran 1,500 games, World Cup, I believe, Stanley Cups,
no World
Olympics.
Cup.
No World Cup?
Yeah, I went to Olympics. No,
just
no
Olympics and Stanley Cups?
No Stanley Cups either. Maybe we should just edit this and just get it right out here. A lot of games, though. A lot of games.
You can find them on ESPN, breaking down all the plays. I'm the real Delco, Dave. Everybody have a good night.
See you guys.